This webinar takes place within the context of ETOA's work on sectoral resilience, so that covers all aspects of sustainability, but today we're particularly focusing on our work with ZEERO and supporting them in the production of biofuels from waste. And Elke is going to explain what ZEERO is, what they do, and how they can work with us as an organization, as you and you as ETOA partners and members. And Patrick from Globus family of brands is kindly here to give us the perspective of an operator member and help us all understand how a large company is approaching these things and how some of those ideas can be replicable among the rest of membership. So Elke, with apologies for technical glitches on my side, may I invite you to share your screen and take it away with the ZEERO presentation. Thank you.
So, hi everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. So I'm going to start with a little reminder of where we are at on the global warming front, but also reminding us that there are solutions, and that's why we are all here today. So our continued use of fossil fuels, deforestation and industrial processes are accelerating climate change and its far-reaching consequences on ecosystems and weather systems and human livelihoods. 2024 was the hottest year on record, and Europe is currently the fastest warming continent, with temperatures rising at roughly twice the global average. 1 in 8 Europeans now lives in an area at risk of flooding, and at the end of August 2025, wildfires have burned through more than 1 million hectares of EU land. In 2024, natural disasters and severe weather cost the global economy $417 billion. Insurers covered $154 billion, marking a 27% increase over the 10-year average. Without intervention, climate change will continue to weaken economic growth, disrupt industries, and increase financial insecurity. The reality is the cost of inaction will be far greater than the cost of action. So transportation is the second largest emitter of greenhouse emissions at around 15%. Among the fastest growing contributors are aviation and shipping. Both are expected to significantly expand in the coming years. Regulatory pressure is now increasing and fines are being introduced to help accelerate emission reductions. Decarbonizing the transportation sector, particularly in the shipping and aviation industries, presents significant technical and logistical challenges. Alternative energy sources such as hydrogen and electric power currently lack the range and efficiency of fossil fuels, with hydrogen's low energy density and the weight and recharging requirements of batteries posing further limitations. The widespread adoption of those technologies would require the replacement of existing vehicle fleets and substantial upgrades to infrastructure, including the development of charging stations and the expansion of renewable electricity supply. But there are other and more immediate solutions, and that's what I'll be showing you today. So let me start with a quick introduction of who we are and what we do. So ZEERO Group is a purpose-driven and impact-focused environmental solutions company committed to delivering long-term, scalable projects and innovations with a mission to decarbonize the travel and events industries. Through our 4 sub-brands, Trees for Travel, ZEERO Events, ZEERO 360 and ZEERO Energies, we support our partners with end-to-end climate solutions, from emissions tracking and reporting to large-scale joint venture initiatives in sustainable fuels, renewable energy, and nature-based projects. Today, I'll be focusing on and showing you how our industry can shift to low-carbon models, strengthening our resilience, enhancing our reputation, and creating long-term value and growth. Our industry is evolving, and systemic change is beginning, and the reason for that, it makes good business sense. As part of our services, we provide carbon management tools and technology to measure, report, and reduce emissions. We combine multiple internationally acclaimed calculation methodologies, and in 2026, we will also be looking to incorporate the ESG framework for tourism businesses, which will be launched at COP30 and led by UN Tourism. Our technology also enables partners to follow their contributions and investments into high-integrity projects, giving full transparency and clear impact-driven data. Now, let me introduce you to our unique approach. At ZEERO, we turn sustainability on its head. We are looking at responsible tourism from a totally different perspective, one where everyone wins, the planet, people, and our partners, where good actions are good for business, and by also offering the opportunity to turn responsibility into returns. So ZEERO is an industry collaboration and joint venture for responsible tourism. We unify isolated efforts, shifting from fragmented climate actions to a shared industry-wide commitment, delivering measurable environmental and community benefits for destinations around the world. ZEERO's climate contributions with SharePoints is our unique shared responsibility, shared success model. These SharePoints are issued with each €3 climate contribution that is added to every traveller's booking, allowing for shared ownership and voting rights for projects, turning every trip into an investment into one's own business and our industry's future, while contributing to the acceleration of global decarbonisation. Once partners achieve 100,000 SharePoints, they can choose to convert them into actual shares of the energy projects, or our partners can choose to donate the shares to a foundation. ZEERO's simple, holistic approach helps to channel contributions into a steady flow of funding to support real-world impact, from globally scalable low-carbon fuels to waste management, renewables, and regenerative nature-based solutions. For ETOA members, ZEERO is flexible and so offers a range of customizable contribution options. So today I'll be introducing you to a ZEERO Energies project that we have identified as a remarkable renewable energy technology, an innovation that tackles two of humanity's greatest challenges, waste and emissions. A circular closed-loop waste-to-value system that converts organic bio-waste, such as food, agricultural and wastewater sewage, into biocrude oils that are 81% lower in emissions than fossil fuels. A scalable and replicable solution. So hydrothermal liquefaction, HTL, is a proven patented technology accelerating Earth's process to produce oil, going from millions of years to just 15 minutes. Yes, you heard right. This technology turns organic biowaste into advanced biofuels using wastewater, sewage, agricultural and food waste. The HTL biofuels integrate seamlessly with existing infrastructures, waste, energy, and transport systems. These drop-in low-carbon fuels support a circular economy, driving energy independence while keeping the world moving. Unlike other biofuel production, HTL requires little to no precious resources such as fresh water or arable land, and is not dependent on weather conditions. HTL also reduces municipal costs for waste management, and with subsidised costs makes ZEERO's biofuels affordable. So ZEERO has succeeded in getting the right to license this technology from the United States Department of Energy and the United States National Laboratory. An HTL unit is the size of 2 shipping containers, able to be manufactured within 12 months and easily transported to destinations around the world. HTL is the most cost-effective, efficient system, with each unit able to process 70 tonnes of wastewater per day, producing 5,000 litres of biocrude per day. It is an extremely fast process, taking only 15 minutes to convert waste to fuel, and has a 1 joule in to 7 joules out of energy, making it the most efficient method of handling waste and creating renewable energy. The HTL units will produce valuable outputs, such as biofuels, including SAF of 25%, 45% biodiesel, 16% gasoline, and 14% of heavy. So those are fuels for shipping. There are also valuable byproducts. So phosphorus can be repurposed as a safe agricultural fertilizer. The HTL process destroys all drugs and PFAS forever chemicals found in the sewage and feedstocks, and then also reduces landfill requirements by 90%. Small quantities of biogenic gases like methanol and concentrated CO2 can also be extracted and sold for synthetic aviation fuels. It is also possible to add a module to the small HTL units to convert the biocrude into a usable biodiesel on site for marine engines and also to power generators. So bringing a level of energy independence to communities, especially island communities. So for wastewater companies, HTL is also a promising solution to their increasing challenges. Mass tourism, urban growth, and extreme weather are overwhelming wastewater and sewage systems. Climate change intensifies rainfall and flash floods, which results in untreated wastewater increasingly spilling into our rivers and coastal waters. The environmental damage and the health risks to communities are increasing. Wastewater overflows are hazardous for both ecosystems and recreational use. The disposal of sewage sludge is becoming more regulated and complex. Sludge is often spread on fields as fertilizer, but growing research shows that toxic chemicals like PFAS forever chemicals are present and getting into our food. So what is the HTL biofuels potential? So 100 tons of biowaste can produce 34,000 litres of biofuels. And here you can also see the potential city outputs per day. ZEERO is currently in discussion with 12 countries on installing different sized plants in cities in the US, Europe, the Middle East and Far East, as well as smaller towns and islands in the Mediterranean, the Caribbean and also French Polynesia. Towns with populations over 25,000 are the most economically viable for our modular HTL units. Just as an example, Greece alone has 55 such towns. And just to put this into perspective, HTL has the potential to reduce fossil fuel requirements by 20% globally. So how can partners have access to the energy and fuels? So fuels produced through ZEERO's investments will be sold. By having a model with saleable fuels, we can then reinvest these revenues to scale up the development of more HTL units and plants across the world, therefore further increasing HTL fuel production. ZEERO partners will have priority access over external requests for purchasing the fuels or for using a book and claim system. So a book and claim system works much like an offset mechanism, but for sustainable fuels, when physical delivery of fuels is not easy, possible, or efficient. This uses a chain of custody model, registry and public ledger, so blockchain, to verify claims, and therefore enables partners to claim biofuels and emission reductions regardless of the location of their operations. Each ZEERO partner will also have access to a ZEERO dashboard and projects page that will show the projects that they have invested into and how many contributions have been made, along with the estimated carbon reduction achieved. So on a basic carbon reduction cost comparison, each €1 invested will reduce 10 kilos of CO2e. Compare this to a flight from London to New York by a major UK airline. This works out at a third of the cost of SAF added to that flight booking. However, this would be a one-off purchase, and when investing into ZEERO, those funds create fuel that is sold, with most of the revenue being snowballed into creating more such projects. This is why our joint venture and ownership model is so important. Biodiesel is currently also pricier than fossil fuel diesel and is therefore less attractive, primarily due to outdated production methods and high costs, often 2 to 5 times that of fossil fuels. However, its potential is growing with the emergence of modern production technologies like HTL plants. And HTL biofuels are not only cost-effective to produce, but they also utilize waste materials, making them eligible for subsidies that can significantly reduce their market price, potentially bringing it in line with fossil fuels. As legislation increasingly imposes penalties on fossil fuel usage, the cost gap is expected to narrow, making biofuels more competitive. Since biofuels are among the most immediate, effective tools for decarbonising transportation, demand from the travel and transport industries is strong. Yet scalability remains a challenge, especially at lower costs, underscoring the importance of accelerating HTL adoption. ZEERO is also a member of the Roundtable of Sustainable Biomaterials, RSB, which also enables the certification of our fuels. So here is an example of how micro contributions can trigger transformative outcomes, driving positive impact across the entire travel and tourism sector. So in 2024, there were around 4 billion airline passengers. If a €3 contribution had been made for each traveller, we could have installed 400 HTL units and produced 750 million litres of biofuels and reduced 1.5 billion kilos of greenhouse gas emissions. We could also have planted 4 billion trees, for example, and within 10 years, carbon drawdown could be around 656 million tonnes. This is also known as the butterfly effect, describing how a single, seemingly small action can actually set off a chain of events that lead to major change. Embedding climate action directly into the travel experience can turn every trip into a contribution to global decarbonisation. Most travellers would not only accept this, but are now expecting this kind of leadership from the travel brands they choose. In order to accelerate and scale our projects, we're using a blended finance model, which draws from a mixture of sources such as governments, municipalities, local partners, private investments, and contributions from the tourism sector. We are also offering fuel offtake, so pre-purchase agreements with airlines, cruise, and coach tour operators, together helping to drive a long-term steady stream of funding, creating a self-reinforcing circular economy. This public-private partnership model fosters direct collaboration and benefit sharing. It's a way to mobilize money, reduce risk, and align diverse interests towards shared goals. As I mentioned, we have interest from a total of 12 countries and are in detailed discussions or proposal stages with the US, UK, Greek, and UAE governments. We are also in negotiations with major fuel and cruise companies where HTL oil samples have been shared and analysed and already show a superior quality to their requirements. HTL is extremely competitive when compared to other biomass and green power alternatives. Besides the cost saving of not having to change vehicles or infrastructure, HTL shows that the capital expenditure CapEx is low and the return is exceptional, being 6 times higher than biogas extraction and 28 times more efficient than direct air carbon capture. Another benefit is that the HTL process can earn additional revenue from waste disposal and reduces landfill requirements by 90%. As well as our great partnership with ETOA, ZEERO is also a strategic sustainable fuel partner with IATA, the International Air Travel Association, who have 330 member airlines, and we have also just partnered with the World Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, representing 66,000 hotels. To summarize the many benefits, HTL is a globally replicable, sustainable and circular model, foundational for a sustainable future and our world economies. HTL could reduce global fossil fuel use by 20%, keeping existing vehicles, ships, planes, rail and infrastructure in place. HTL also addresses two of our biggest challenges, waste and emissions, supporting adaptation to a cleaner, safer and more resilient world. Through consistent micro investments, we can help drive scalable solutions for our industry, and blended finance from the public and private sector reduces risk. A solution that brings energy independence to regions, islands, communities, providing local employment opportunities in the green energy sector. So ZEERO's sustainability offer is not a cost, but an asset, turning responsibility into returns through the creation of sustainable, tradable, and profitable products. ZEERO's approach is grounded in regenerative and circular principles, supporting forward-thinking businesses that embed responsibility at the core of their operations. This is a powerful opportunity to not only drive resilience, reputation, and long-term value in tourism, but to ensure your business benefits from the green economy of tomorrow. So please do reach out if you would like to take part in our micro contribution shared ownership model, remembering that we offer a range of customizable contribution options to ETOA members. But now I'm going to hand over to Patrick from Global Family of Brands to tell you a little about how they address responsible travel, about our partnership, and how the future is evolving. Patrick, it's all yours.
Thank you, Elke, and good morning, everyone. So as Tim and Elke introduced me, my name is Patrick Prejano, and I'm the head of sustainability at Global Family of Brands. We are a tour operator selling coach tours, river cruises, and also independent vacations, sort of tour operated FITs, if you like. And next slide, please. So we do offer in total, as of today, 741 vacations in 6 continents and 77 countries. And we've been around now 97 years. So we are marking our 100th anniversary in 2028. So that tells us as a business that understanding what's going on in the world right now, we collectively need to take action if we want to be here in another 100 years and still providing our guests with amazing tours, vacations, holidays, beach holidays. So without a planet, we don't have a business, basically. So there is an opportunity there to drive positive impact and be in business in the future as well. Next slide, please. So as a business, as a company, since the very beginning, we sparked exploration, connection, and contribution. But however, we also realized that the size and the nature of our business has an impact on the planet, the places, and the people. So what happened during COVID, where everyone more or less was having a lot of time to reflect and think about projects, we asked ourselves, what more can we do? How can we ensure that we minimize our negative impact and maximize our positive impact? So to address all these questions, in 2021, we launched our Lighthouse project with the objective of identifying opportunities to support local communities and social causes. We wanted to ensure that we could contribute and preserve and restore all the attractions that we visit, and ensuring that we back organizations committed to social and environmental improvement. And of course, we must lighten our footprint in general, overall. So they all started back in 2021. And that's year zero. That's where the journey starts. And at the beginning, it was really overwhelming with all the information, the regulations, a lot of unclarity around the lack of standardized and harmonized regulations in Europe, but really globally. So we were a little bit scared on what do we do now. So as a large tour operator, we had to sort of break it down a little bit and understand that we need to tackle areas step by step and sort of set small objectives, but that have a real big impact at the beginning. So we chose to start, if you want to go to the next slide, Elke, please. So we chose to start our journey focusing on what we can control. As a tour operator with, let's say, light assets tour operator, we don't really own a lot of infrastructure, but we do have premises, offices, and we do own the majority of our Avalon waterways ships. So we started thinking about, okay, what can we do in our offices and from a product perspective with Avalon to actually start our journey. So obviously the first, call it low-hanging fruits for everyone, the first actions we took was to eliminate all single-use plastic across the business. We massively reduced our paper use. We implemented energy saving and renewable energy projects in many offices. And for Avalon, what we also wanted to do was not only to go digital and do all this, but we also wanted to find a partner that offered nature positive projects that we could use to basically start offsetting or compensating our carbon footprint. So the Globus family of brands is a family-owned business. So we've got really strong family values, and we wanted to look for a partner that not only is recognized and reputable, but also that understands or where shares the same values, basically. And that's where we first met with Elke and the team at ZEERO, and we started talking about how can we compensate our carbon footprint on our Avalon vessels. And so we went for the model, the tree planting and supporting renewable energy projects. So as of today, we started in 2022. We planted for our Avalon guests almost 250,000 trees and reduced 57,000 tons of CO2 through UN certified renewable energy projects. This is a partnership. This is what is going on right now. And when Elke first told us about this incredible opportunity of stepping into doing more the planet in biofuels, we've started really discussing how we can take the Globus family of brands to the next level. So we are exploring ways to collaborate for biofuels and climate contribution moving forwards. And I guess Elke said that during her presentation. I think it's important to recognize that it's and despite everyone is probably at a different stage in their sustainability journey, we all have our part to play as an industry overall. So that collaborative spirit amongst the travel industry and the companies is important, just to duplicate or even decuplicate the ripple effect that we can have on the planet and the people and the places. So probably what I'm trying to say is that regardless of where you're at, find your own journey. Start small, but start, and find great people, great organizations, great companies to work with to accelerate your your journey and reach your objectives as soon as possible.
Thanks, Patrick. Elke, can you hear me? Just want to check that.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes,
so
Tim, I can hear you.
That's good. I apologize to the audience for my distractive behavior on online. I had to leave one device, start another. Thank you both very much for Elke walking us through what ZEERO is and the sort of thinking behind it in the broader context, and Patrick for sharing what Globus Family of Brands is doing. To our audience, and I've just had a quick look through the participants, we've got colleagues from United Nations who are focusing on climate, as well as members. And it's a reasonably small group actively listening. We will be putting this on the website and sharing Elke's presentation, so you'll be able to have a good look at that later. But I'd encourage you, if you've not used Zoom before, and which looks rather like my use of the moment because you've seen too much of my finger prodding a screen, there's a Q&A function in the middle of the bottom of the screen. So if you have any questions, I've certainly got some, but I'd certainly like to invite you to submit some questions, and we'll be able to see them as the session develops. So we'll see how much time we will continue. But I'd like to just say a couple of things about where this fits into what ETOA is doing, but the broader context of what we're doing with our partners in Brussels and with UN Tourism in Madrid as well. Partly this is driven by the wish to support practical change. There's an awful lot of rhetoric, as we know, at a political level. There's an awful lot of scientific evidence that the need for change is urgent. But meanwhile, we need to get on with it. This is an example that is very practicable. It works now. And as Elke says, there are people in the public sector, so for example, regional governments, local governments, national governments, who can see that not only does this address a waste management problem, it also has a commercially useful byproduct. So this is not about stopping the travel industry. This is about enabling the travel industry to use a fuel that is less harmful than fossil fuels. So this isn't about solving everything. It's about making a very clear and quick difference in what is otherwise a sort of a very intractable problem. So that's why we're involved. And if we talk to our members who are coach operators like Globus Family of Brands, can you get hold of enough HVO? It's another form of biofuel. The answer is no, and it costs 15–20% more. So there is, at the moment, a commercial problem, there's a supply problem, and there's a price problem. We're a market, and we're trying to level the playing field a bit in order that it's easier to make the right decision. And the right decision in this case is using materials that are less harmful. So Patrick talked about it in respect of single-use plastics. Fuel use is absolutely squarely in the middle of that. You probably know the broader political context to do with aviation and the ambitions to increase the amount of sustainable aviation fuel that goes inside planes, 2% rising thereafter. But 2% means 98% is still fossil fuels. So part of what we're trying to do is, irrespective of what the formal international frameworks and agreements are, there is a very strong commercial case for accelerating the production of biofuels in any case. It will bring price down and it'll raise awareness that there is a sort of circular economy route to abate what is the traditionally hardest to abate form of transport, that's aviation. And we've also got a very willing client base in long distance coaching, for which electric coaches just are not an option. So we know that Euro 6 coaches are going to remain the mainstay of group tourism traveling around Europe. We need to find a way of giving them fuels that are less harmful. This is one such way. So that's the background of why we're involved in very much the beginning of our relationship, and we're looking forward to where it can lead. But with that sort of scene setting, sort of Elke, Patrick, I don't know if you've got any reflections about, where you see the balance between us as a trade association spending our time talking to regulators and asking for an enabling framework and funding and so on and so forth, Or do you just think this is really about getting the private sector engaged because there's a strong commercial case and let's get on with it? I think, Elke, I've heard that, you know, really your funding model is very much public and private, and you can kind of see that as being the driver. But any reflections on the broader context of this would be welcome. And while you do that, I'll just have a quick review of the first question we've got in. So over to you, Elke or Patrick, if you've any reflections on the broader context. I've got
Patrick,
a technical, sorry, go ahead, Elke.
I think just, you know, from our perspective, and on a political level, government level, I think we have to just take the lead here, and we have to just get on with it. You know, if we want to have an industry, we need to look after our industry. We need to find solutions. We can't wait for others. I think that's the point, and that's our mindset. We need to just get on with it. Patrick, I don't know if you have any. And it's even, like you said, it's even something small. The point is we can all do something, and it's those small actions that are unified that are going to bring about the change that we need.
Yeah. Thank you, Elke. Patrick.
I very much agree with that.
Okay.
It is frustrating every now and then to see how really governments, there's a lot of lack of standardization, even clarity around what we should be doing and how we should be doing this. And that's where you get overwhelmed and you get scared and you don't know how to move forward. So understanding that we as an industry need to take the lead and get those small actions in place and move forward and build upon your victories, but also understand and learn from your mistakes and trying to really collectively, again, and I'd like to emphasize this collective effort that we as an industry need to make. And every time I find myself in meetings, conferences, or summits where the travel industry is represented, it's very clear that there is a desire of being in a collaborative space and non-competitive space. So we shouldn't be, as an industry, we shouldn't be competing in sustainability. We should be all doing the same things. Obviously, every single company is a business, and there are confidentialities around this. But I can see that if you have holistic objectives and you agree upon those objectives within other companies, we all have the same objective at the end of the day. So we all move forward.
Yeah. And I think your point, Patrick, you know, everyone's competing. You know, tourism thrives on competition. It drives innovation. We know it's a good thing. But this is one area where collective collaboration is going to make a big difference. And if there is clear demand for more biofuel, then the commercial case for creating the production will be there. A few questions have come in, and Elke, if you've not had a chance to read the second, I've got an initial response, but you'll have a more technical one. So the first question was about HVO, and acronyms do beset this debate, so we may need to do a little bit of a glossary. But HVO is hydrogenated vegetable oil, or hydrolyzed, if I get the name right, but it's hydrotreated. Excuse me. So that is just one form of biofuel, and people will be familiar with recovering, you know, fat that's previously been used for cooking and turning it into something that can be used for fuel. And the question was, well, there's HVO and it exists, and that's what's, you know, still 15-20% more expensive than fossil fuel diesel. But what's the difference of HTL in terms of infrastructure? I think there's a slight misunderstanding in that HTL is the production process. It's hydrothermal liquefaction. So that's what happens to the organic feedstock. So whether it's human sewage or other bio waste that goes into the HTL plant, and out of the other end of that, you get a crude oil, which can be sent to exactly the same refineries that refine fossil fuel. So HVO is, if you like, just a subset of biofuel, but HTL is a way of making crude oil that is based on biological non-fossil fuel inputs called hydrothermal liquefaction. So it's a process rather than a product, HTL. So that's the background to that. But I think the secondary question to anonymous attendees kind question is, asking, have we been looking at the sentiment of SME transport suppliers on its use? And talking to, apologies for the camera swinging around, talking to some of our smallish tour operators, some of them are choosing to just spend more money than they have to on fuel. So they are using the vehicles that are compliant already, Euro 6, for all the low emission zones and so forth, but they are choosing to spend more money on biofuels because they think it's the right thing to do and they can just about afford it. And it's not being customer led. And I think that's one of the very interesting observations about this, is that we as an industry will need to take a lead, because this is not going to be consumer driven from a system change perspective. So there are definitely some operators who are just biting the bullet and accepting that they're going to have to invest in order to do the right thing. But it's pretty clear that from a sort of cost benefit perspective, whether it's people not having the capital to invest in a new electric coach, even if the lifetime cost saving might be there because the charging cost will be less than the fuel cost, there is certainly a public sector, a government piece as to how to enable and accelerate change through smart incentives, whether they're tax breaks, and certainly building infrastructure. Where can you actually get hold of this supply? Virginia from UN Tourism has added an excellent question to do with what the possible inputs are for the process, Elke. So over to you if you'd like to answer that one.
What are the possible inputs?
Yes. So just to read
what respect?
So her question was sort of how selective is the solution with the biomass going into it? Can all kinds of organic waste go into the mix?
See. Right. Okay. So actually, primarily the feedstock, the most interesting feedstock is the sewage sludge. So from cities, as I said, the most commercially viable cities that have a population of 25,000. And but then obviously we can also take in any kind of organic biomass. So that's agricultural waste or food waste. And that will vary depending on the location of where we have an HTL unit, or cities or locations, islands, whatever. The input will be the feedstock, as they call it, will be slightly different. So there will be slight variations of the biocrude that comes out the other end. But generally speaking, the HTL biofuels are just phenomenal what's coming out. And like I said during the presentation as well, the biofuels have already, with these tests, with these first units that have been already producing some of the biocrude, they're already being analysed by oil companies, and the results are just phenomenal. They are amazing and are much higher quality-wise than the requirement. So but generally, as I said, the most of the feedstock will be coming from sewage waste, and that is obviously where it's also from an environmental side. It's also just it's really important that we help sort out the sewage waste problems that we are having all over the world, actually, and especially because of climate change, where the rainfall is increasing and is much more unpredictable, with flash floods. I mean, overspills are kind of there. They are allowed to a certain level and necessary, but actually now they're just being, it's going on another level with these flash floods. And so we are destroying ecosystems. And as an industry, we rely on, nature, rivers, the seas, the beaches, the coastal waters. So it is also in our interest as an industry to really kind of back this kind of solution that addresses so many different areas.
think that's right. And Virginia, sort of coming back to the sort of broader UN context, I know I've been at meetings that have involved UN tourism and UN habitat and UN environment. And it's very clear that this is a system solution. It's not just about the travel industry. The travel industry would be a beneficiary, and it would really supply a sort of very useful sort of commercial catalyst. But the idea that this really does take some of the load off what would otherwise simply be a cost, managing waste, and with climate change and more extreme weather events, as Elke has said, managing city sewage is harder because excess rainfall and so forth means that the systems can't cope. So there is an economic case for getting this kind of system in. And I think, Elke, when we've been talking about this before, you said that as things stand now, it's economically viable for a city of, say, 25,000 or more. So this is already a scalable solution all over Europe. And the thought would be that the production units can actually cope with a smaller amount of feedstock and still be economically viable. But Patrick Richards, you've asked us a question. Welcome, Patrick. Thanks for joining us. And it's a question for you, Elke. I know you said you were in dialogue with Greece, with US, with the Emirates. Do you want to sort of put your finger in the air and make a guess as when you would hope that the first commercial production will take place? I know that the proof of concept is done, and you've had the sort of the oil that you've produced tested by oil companies, and they're happy with the product. That's something that can be refined, can just go absolutely into the mainstream of fuel supply. But when do you expect that the HTL production will be taking place on a commercial basis?
I believe next year we will have our first production starting. So I'm not in a position yet to say which country we will be starting with. But we have 3 contenders at the moment who are very close. But definitely by the end of 2026, I think we will be producing our first HTL biofuels that will be commercially available, and which is a very, very exciting development. And obviously these units as well, just to explain a little bit, the great thing about them, because of the size of these units, which is, like I said, they're like 2 shipping containers next to each other, we can actually we can build a bigger plant. We can just add more units into a wastewater works if there is space. So it's the size of these units that is just incredible, because it makes it so scalable. Easily scalable. And like I said, these units are also, they can be manufactured within 12 months. So it's a very, very interesting, and we are actually also we are talking to manufacturers of doing bigger plants. And that obviously is on a different scale, and those bigger plants would actually take up to anything between 2 to 3 years to build. So for us, the HTL units are a much more interesting beginning. But yeah, it's kind of all in the process at the moment, in discussions with various countries.
Thank you. I mean, one observation I'd have, and again, we've discussed this as we've sort of developed the potential scope and purpose of this partnership, is the external economic reality. So one of the reasons why Europe is very different from US and Canada, for example, is that US and Canada still has cheap fossil fuels, and politically that remains the name of the game. There are huge tar sands which are being exploited in Canada. There's a lot of fracking in the US, and it's politically not on the horizon that the cost of fossil fuels will increase significantly. Europe is taking a different path, and it's got a regulatory environment. So in the context of the Sustainable Transport Investment Fund that's currently got an open consultation, and the development of the EU Sustainable Tourism Strategy, what are the fundamental building blocks of a system that is less damaging is something that the EU is getting to grips with. a lot of it is still in the category of what might good look like, as opposed to this is the plan. But one of the interesting developments this year has been a new approach to the tax environment, so that it would certainly be permissible, or more easily permissible, for member states to offer tax incentives for this kind of production. There's certainly been examples, for example, in Sweden, where Sweden got a derogation from Brussels, got permission from Brussels to offer a tax incentive to biofuel production, because that's a form of state aid, and EU member states need permission from Brussels to do that. But as a result, Sweden's got well over 90% non-fossil fuel road transport fleet for its public transport. So it is doable if the public sector leans in and it's commercially viable. So this is really about acceleration, as some people have observed in the chat. And Europe's in a place to do it because the regulatory environment is pushing in that direction. Whether or not it's going as fast as we like is, a topic for a more policy-focused debate. But I think this is a technology which is appearing at a time when the external enabling framework of regulation, of tax incentives, and our sort of collective capacity to share good practice is growing and is favorable. So it's good timing. The stars are aligned, and I think that represents, why ETOA thinks this is something that merits attention and merits support. So we don't have any more questions at the moment. We don't have to run to the full hour. If people have got the information they need, we will be sharing the presentation that Elke put together. Does anyone else have any more questions before I invite Elke and Patrick to share any final reflections and where they think the focus will be on the next few months for them? I can't see any more questions in the chat. So either Elke or Patrick, if you've got any final reflections, and if you'd like to sort of share what you'll be focusing on in the next 2 to 3 months, further to what we've all heard during this session. Over to you. Elke, would you like to start?
I just would like to say, if anybody has any questions whatsoever, please feel free to reach out to us. I think our email, all our contacts are on the ETOA website, and we're very happy to chat with any members and find solutions of how we can help you embed sustainability and work with you. It would be an absolute pleasure, and we're very proud to be here today and working with ETOA. Thank you.
Thanks, Elke. Patrick, over to you.
For us, the next 6 months to 1 year, our focus will definitely be on 2 main areas, which is the environment. So continuing to look at ways to reduce our negative impact of our vacations. So we've started all the measurement side, all the discussions internally on product design to reduce our carbon footprint, and mainly engaging with the supply chain. As a tour operator, over 70% of our emissions come from the supply chain. So we're not really in control of what they do, yet they're on us. So whatever they produce comes into our calculation as well. So we need to find ways to engage with the supply chain. So that's one area. And then the other area, there's a lot of focus now on people. So on the social impact, so on community tourism. So there's a lot of conversation going on right now. So the next months will be exciting to see what we can do in that respect to increase what we're already doing.
Thank you. And I think from an ETOA perspective, just to sort of share some of our thinking, if you've not yet had a look at our sustainability hub, please do. That's sort of to be navigated through on the main bar, and you'll see it along with the Insight Hub. And the full content of that is available to members only, but we will be able to provide further information to ZEERO, as Elke said, to anyone who's curious. And Virginia and her colleagues at UN would be among those. We certainly sort of draw to their attention these kinds of initiatives, because it's very much member-led, the way we're working on sustainability. This is not ETOA's program, this is our collective program. What's on the Sustainability Hub includes a lot of different categories of information, including how people have developed ways of making the internal argument, making the business case for more sustainable practice within their organizations, because we know one of the biggest obstacles to change is getting it sufficiently high up the management priority list, and making sure that management are sufficiently literate with the topic and understand what's being offered, and really see that the interests of sustainability and commerce just align. You know, if it makes business sense, it's sustainable. Sustainability should make good business sense. So this is not about altruism. This is about enlightened self-interest. But we need to get moving faster than the external, the regulator is going to force us to. So this is about adopting good practice before the constraints get more severe. But I think Elke mentioned it earlier, or it might have been when I was kicked out of the platform. One of the interesting drivers for this development is going to be the risk of fines if airlines do not comply with the SAF content requirement of the fuel that's on board, and the fines could be really very significant. So there is a huge self-interest in making sure there is enough fuel that meets the correct standard, because otherwise there will be a supply side constraint. Airlines are not going to want to take the risk, and suddenly there will be a much more acute pressure on getting enough SAF. We know production's not there. It's going to be really interesting to see if this sort of public-private approach that HTL represents and ZEERO would deliver is going to take off. And I think, you know, watch this space. It looks very promising to us. So please do look at the Sustainability Hub. It's only been there for a few months, and I'd like to name check Beth, who really put it all together. But it's there for members. We've got some case studies. I think Patrick's latest commentary on Californian regulation is there, and duties to disclose risk related to climate. Do have a look. There's lots of interesting material. We're not pretending that we've got everything, but we're trying to select things which are highly relevant for the travel industry and will support people in their internal discussions and their organization, as well as the practical changes, examples of which Patrick has given us earlier. So with that, I'd like to thank Elke and Patrick for joining us today and for sharing what they're up to. It's really encouraging. And I look forward to seeing everyone at another one of these soon, hopefully with a slightly more stable technological background.